Spoiler warning, I will be discussing Loki episodes 1 through 6 in this video. If you do not want spoilers, this is the only warning you're gonna get. Be forewarned. Oh, and also thanks for clicking this video. You're the best. I know I can't be the only one who watched Loki and the entire time felt like I was watching someone else's short 6-session D&D campaign. But it wasn't a usual D&D campaign, it was wild and chaotic, with some of the players joining halfway through while others were not able to make it to every session, and a DM who had a very loose idea of where the story was going while still having to entirely make up things on the fly because the players all decided to choose to play the most backstabbing and chaotic PCs they could possibly think of. Also Mobius. And you know what? I'm gonna say it, I'd play in that campaign. Sounds like one crazy time of laughs and fun. But it got me thinking, what can we learn about our tabletop roleplay games as game masters for our own tables from the show? After all, there's a lot of content here from a storytelling perspective anyways. Not one, but two evil characters striving to find redemption and what that means, as well as a well-intentioned and stoic do-gooder who ultimately finds that his quest and oath has been a lie, and multiple wild and zany characters who help the main characters find themselves and where their true passions lie. I don't know about you, but that sure does sound like a pretty great D&D campaign to me. So with all that being said, I want to talk about the lessons we can learn as dungeon masters from Loki. I want to talk about how to run a crazy character-driven campaign. So let's talk about that. Before I can talk about the lessons that we can learn from Loki, I feel the need to discuss what makes Loki unique and worth trying to put elements into our tabletop games for. When I look at Loki, I see a few defining elements that really make up the whole vibe of the show for me. 1. Redemption and trickery. 2. The consequences and reactions of higher cosmic powers. And 3. Fantastical technology and magic to see multiple different incredible areas. Now, I'm sure there's more to it than that, and other people would define it differently, but this is my video. If you don't like it, you can watch a different one. But please don't. It would mean a lot if you could watch to the end and like and comment. Okay, thanks, you good-looking bastard. But those are the three main themes I want to discuss today, and we'll start with the first one, redemption and trickery. I'm going to go ahead and put a spoiler warning right here. I get totally sidetracked in this video and do not talk about the other 2 points, but I do think that I make some good points, so please stick around. Through the majority of the first episodes of Loki, we see Loki attempt to use his guile and wits to escape the situation he's currently in, as we've seen him do many times before in the MCU. The difference this time, however, is he doesn't get anywhere. There's essentially no movement or progress at all, and even when he does escape, it leads him to nowhere but back to his own cell. So, we clearly see that, this time, his lying and deceit are not what's going to save him. Even better, his escape attempts not only lead him back to his cell, but he then has to come face to face with watching his own future which will now never come to be, and watch each and every time his trickery and lies hurt those around him and himself. And even watch it eventually lead to his death and to dying in his brother's arms as he mourns him. Really hoping those who didn't want spoilers have clicked off before then. Anyways, in this series we see the same message repeated over and over again. Loki's lie and backstab. But it always leads to them being alone and ultimately their own failure. In this series, betrayal is not the path to success, and therefore they only have one option in front of them, redemption or to be pruned from the timeline. In a D&D campaign, especially ones with evil PCs, this is a fascinating concept. The idea of sitting down at session 0 and knowing that all your players will play flawed, evil characters, and everyone at the table knows this, it means the point of the campaign is to see if these characters will be redeemed. Now, this is tricky because if you have a bunch of PCs who want to betray each other, you run the risk of having a very unfun game. At the same time, if you try and stifle all the betrayals and keep them from doing the backstabbing that is core to their characters, it also becomes an unfun time. So how do we run this? Through our good old handy tools, player buy-in, and a session 0. Now, personally, if I were to do this, and it is my opinion, I would lay out that the plan is to have them play conniving betrayers, yes, but know that the ultimate point of this campaign is for them to find redemption or ultimately fall into darkness. In order to do that, the PCs must experience that whenever they betray, it will ultimately lead down a darker road, not the one that leads them to success. So when they betray, lie, and backstab the villains and obstacles in the story, I would reward that, search for success. But when they try to do it to NPCs who they've garnered trust with, or other PCs, I would let them know it may not end that well. And does that mean that you dictate their actions and railroad them? Absolutely not. Don't ever do that in a long-term campaign. But it does mean that you can be more lenient. Are they trying to deceive a villain? Well, let them do that. Maybe make the DC slightly lower to get through that deception check. Are they going to lie to another PC? Maybe bump that DC up a little bit. Or have the lie straight up backfire on them. Because here's the deal, if we're going to be running a campaign where the PCs have to learn to trust each other and redeem themselves, they have to learn the consequences of not trying to do better. Thus, you make things harder for them when they begin to lean into their negative traits. Help the characters learn that things go better when they trust their party. And again, this requires players to have bought in and want to explore this aspect of your character, which is why that makes a session 0 so important. Because if a player understands the themes or vibes of your world, it lets them know where everyone at the table would like the story to go. Does it dictate the end of the story ahead of time and therefore make improvisational collaborative storytelling we play D&D for worthless? No. But when a group of players understands that we want the story to be one about redemption or about a group of backstabbers, they understand that the DM will lean into their antics to lead the story in the right direction. And to be totally honest, I think this is an important part of DMing that oftentimes gets a little underappreciated or not highlighted. And that's the DM's responsibility to direct a story in a thematic direction the players are excited for. I think some DMs do this without even realizing it, but after a while of playing with a certain group, a DM gets a sense of the things that they like. Do the players react well to super cool and powerful NPCs hopping in to help the party out? Okay, cool, we can lean into that. Or do the players not really care for really cool combat moments, but instead they really enjoy clever quips and harsh wit? Well then, maybe a lot of the enemies they run up against are a little more sensitive than you'd originally planned to play them, so the players can relish in the torment they cause with their dastardly clever insults. Or are the players really into big moments of self-sacrifice, so you intentionally add just a few more moments to give up something important so they can enjoy those moments? And I'll be clear, this goes beyond just what you put into game, it can affect the mechanics too, just like I mentioned earlier. If all my players want to do is have really cool combat moments, I'm probably going to set a slightly lower DC than usual for that acrobatics check to do an awesome flip, or I might not even call for a roll at all and just let them do it. But that's all at a DM's discretion. The point I'm trying to make is if you start noticing what your group of players get excited about, you're probably going to start opening more opportunities for them to fully lean into that. That's the beauty of the relationship between the trust in the DM and player buy-in. If the players buy into what the DM is offering, both groups can revel in the knowledge that they're on the same page of where they want the story to go. So in the case of a campaign like Loki, where all the characters most likely have their own agendas, plans, and secret motives, if they also buy into the idea of what the story is about, being redemption, their evil and conniving plans and backstabs will most likely not work out in their favor, and they will know that, so you can have an awesome campaign filled with hijinks and a bunch of lovable scamps learning that they can trust and love. Now, all that being said, there's one pitfall here I feel is fair to warn you about. As a DM, you also have to buy into the characters that your players are playing. If they've made a really cool deceptive trickster character who's charismatic with a silver tongue, but you've decided that every time they're going to attempt to use that silver tongue, it will backfire on them, that is going to become very unfun very quickly. And the way to avoid this is actually laid out right in Loki itself. Every time Loki tries to lie or deceive any of the main cast in the show, it backfires in a pretty spectacular way. And I mentioned this earlier in the video, but it lines up pretty perfectly with the events in the actual show. Remember when he tries to lie to Mobius?
But I need assurances.
Yeah?
Assurances that I won't be completely disintegrated the moment the job has been done.
Right.
And we'll need to speak to the timekeepers at once. They're in graver danger than we realized.
He's lying.
He gets called out almost immediately. Or how about when he tries to backstab Sylvie by convincing her a tiny little neon sign can recharge the temp pad?
Could that charge the temp pad?
Maybe. Okay, hand it over.
Pitiful. I'm not giving it to you. You're gonna have to try harder than that.
Then don't give me your tech-savvy ideas either.
Nope, she's onto him and trying to stab him right back. However, this doesn't mean we don't get the chance to see his amazing trickery shine. He makes an amazing escape attempt in the first episode. It just doesn't really work out because the TVA is a big old plot device that can't be escaped that easily. He also kicks ass in the scene where they're attempting to escape the destruction of a planet they are on by literally lifting an entire tower back into place with his mind. Which, real talk here, Disney, I'm waiting for an explanation on that. How did he do that? That was not something he's done before. I'll accept my answer by email or mail. Either works. Just go ahead and send it my way. But either way, we get to see his skills and talents shine in some pretty awesome ways, just not usually when trying to harm his other party members. So, as a DM, we must also buy into the characters our players are wanting to play and let them shine. If you have a player playing an illusionist, you have to let your NPCs fall for the illusion sometimes. Not all the time, but you have to have an understanding of what they want to do. And it's your job to make the characters feel real and worth playing. I remember once I was playing a sorcerer who used Major Image to create a large tornado, and the DM immediately had all NPCs make an investigation check without hesitation. And that's because I didn't check with him before and make sure he was aware I was hoping to use illusions more often. So DM buy-in is just as important. If I just talked to him and let him know that was going to happen beforehand, we might have been able to work with that a little differently. So in order to play a campaign like Loki with a bunch of lovable scams who intend to backstab each other and learn how to redeem themselves, the simple answer is you need player and DM buy-in. And with those two things, you can have an awesome campaign, Loki or not. So I hope this video helped out. Go out into the world and make it your own, you beautiful bastards, and never forget to play your world. What? To play your role. What? Never forget to play your role. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Play your world? What does that mean?